Okay, sorry, it looks like a mess, but now I'll give you another video to cover everything I've worked on. I'll also add in what I've seen, what you should probably get worked on in the future. Um, it if you're wanting to get the car up to perfect or just get important pertinent things worked on, stuff like that. But yeah, I'll also explain why it's such a challenge. Now, the first part is one that I've dealt with in a sense, but not in this level. This thing. Now, you see, you got spark plugs here in the front. So the back ones, yeah, they're under this thing. You gotta take this thing off to get to them. That is always a big challenge with a front wheel drive car because of the way the engine has to be set up. The intake manifold has to be on top. You pretty much have to take it off to get those back ones. Now, I know that's usually a pretty big job, so I plan accordingly. But man, I just had no idea about this particular engine, and I even did some research on that, talked to some Nissan experts. It really is this specific engine because one of my friends is a huge fan of the Maximas from the 90s. And whereas this is still a very nice car, I drove it and it drives very well, it's got a lot of power. Um, After working on this and being one that works on my own cars, I would not own this thing. That thing was 10 times more complex than those I dealt with. A good example, I had a 2005 Ford Taurus that I learned this on, and that took me 3 days, but again, I was learning it completely for the first time. But now I can take it apart in like an hour. And even one I wasn't familiar with, so that's even more where I do try to judge it like I don't know that particular car, so it's kind of a little differences I got to learn. I do normally plan accordingly, so I had a friend that has a Hyundai Sonata with a V6 that was also a customer, and hers was about what I expected. Some parts were a little aggravating, but for the most part, it wasn't that tough. Once I figured I had it off, it just came right off. This one, me and my son kind of joked about it a little bit. There was probably at least four times, if not more, that I was like, man, we finally got it off, and I go to pull, and something else is attached, and we got to figure out something else difficult. It's more difficult than the norm for these. Now, the power steering was a new kind of struggle. I wasn't used to this at all. And I showed you a little bit about that banjo bolt, the first one that made me struggle in the first video. The other things are down here. That one's just a matter of brute strength way down there, so I'll get that in a second here. But let's see. Yeah, still can't see right on the camera. Anyway, yeah, about where it's spotlighting, that general area, there's a couple of screws coming from the other direction. Like if they're coming, if somebody's coming from the back of the car this way, going that direction. And pretty much everyone suggested ways to get them from underneath, different ways. And one friend suggested made it a lot harder. But another one was like wobble sockets, which I had to use for the banjo bolt in the hose. But still, that one wasn't too bad because of where it was. These were too close to their spot, and even the wobble socket made it virtually impossible. But I figured out a trick on my own. Nobody else told me. I got it from up here because they also tell you to get the piece near it. Let's see. I should be able to touch that. Yeah. So I'm touching it, but damn, I can't hardly get the camera on it. It's tough to get the camera in certain spots. Yeah, where my finger is, they suggested getting this from up here, which makes sense. But then I noticed those screws were just slightly over from it, and I got them from up here, which nobody else suggested. I had to learn that make that up myself. And yeah, those were the challenges that I just kept fighting with, especially in this 115-degree heat. Had to take frequent breaks at my wife's imploring me because I was so worried about being late that I just kept on and kept on and kept on to the point where I walked in and looked like I took a shower and sweat. And now I'll go over some of the things that you might want to get worked on a bit later on. One is this tie rod. So I'll go over how you tell it's broke. Like when I was first beginning, I didn't know how to look. I just thought if they were dirty or looked bad in that sense, they were bad. But no, you got to know specific things to look for. In this case, you can even see the break in it. This rubber boot right here. With that being torn open, the thing in this that's connected to here is the moving area. That means it's lost its grease. It's probably completely wore out. And also that's where I can even show you things I just wouldn't suggest fixing unless you just really want to have all new stuff. They're not broken. But that people normally replace a lot. Your sway bar links, you can see the boots look good. Yeah, that boot looks good too. And your ball joint down here, yeah, you can see its boot looks real good. So I wouldn't suggest replacing those. But yes, this tie rod is shot. I would suggest replacing that soon. One I showed you in a picture earlier. Yeah, let me just move my light. There's enough light from what I can see looking at the camera. Yeah, like you see on this bolt, all this means a valve cover gasket. You can see this bolt. That bolt gives you an idea of how tall this is. That's all it is that tall. Those bolts come off and it comes off. We have to do it to the back one too. That's something else in the future. Now, right now, again, it's not leaking bad. So again, you can let this go for a while. That same Hyundai Sonata customer I had, she let it go so long that her car was literally burning oil because it was being sprayed out onto the exhaust manifold under here, but in the back one, that it was burning off. But as you can see, your exhaust manifold's clean, so yours is not leaking badly yet, and so you don't have to do it now. But you should probably do it in the next, I'd say, 30 to 50,000 miles at least. If you wait any longer than that, it's going to get too bad, and your car's going to start smoking or losing oil constantly. And actually, that's pretty much the majority of everything I see. Your battery's been strong. I also got your new air filter because that one was worn out. And yeah, other than just that one little thing I got to turn down there, it's all taken apart, and reassembly goes so much easier. I'll be done tomorrow for sure. But again, yeah, I feel really bad it took me so long. I committed to one time, and I just really did not know what I was getting into, man. This thing was a challenge. But also I got to thank you, since you've been so patient. I love a challenge. I love learning. So I love learning all this. I just only feel bad from the standpoint I told you a much earlier time. So yeah, I'm loving this challenge. I'm learning a hell of a lot. I'll be able to carry my business even farther. But yeah, that's pretty much the details on what took me so long, what your car will need in the future, and what we've done so far. Yeah, from everything I can see, you're getting pretty well caught up. Like I said, I only pointed out like 2 things I could see that were really that tore up. That's pretty much it. Oh, I am forgetting one thing. Remember telling you about your rotor. So let me show you that so I can show you the details. Now, ignore the rust. That doesn't mean anything. They rust anytime they get wet. As soon as your brake pads hit them, it comes back off. But you see the lines, how it's extremely scored real bad. The way this generally happens is that the brake pad completely wore out to the point where it was the brake pad backing the metal, and that shreds it, and then it must be replaced, or at the very least turned. This wasn't either. Some place you went to for work literally didn't tell you about this or whatever. I can't speak for you, but just knowing you and how patient you've been and how much you're trying to take care of this car, I really doubt you would have allowed this to happen. Yeah, somebody was okay with putting broken crap back on your car. This is not acceptable, and was definitely your freaking brake problem. Somebody took a brake rotor that was destroyed by the metal part of a brake pad and just put new pads on the car. Because the pads aren't worn out, so it isn't the current pad's fault. Somebody literally ignored a problem.